morning, and thank you for joining us from the various time zones all over the world today. We certainly appreciate it. Welcome to this latest episode of IRG's Oracle webinar series. Cayman's growing high net worth community and building on a tradition of excellence. For those of you who do not know me, my name is James O'Brien, and I'm head of luxury real estate at IRG, otherwise known as International Realty Group, here in the Cayman Islands. If you haven't had the opportunity to dial into one of our previous episodes, we aim to keep these sessions to a manageable 40 minutes. And this unfortunately doesn't allow for any Q&A. However, if you would like to send us some questions, either in the chat room or the chat group here on Zoom, or you can send us an email to info@irg.ky, and one of our panelists will respond with a personal reply, which is better, after this session. The episode will be recorded, of course, and made available after this session. And you can catch up on the excellent content that you're about to see and hear and read this morning. So now, without any further delay, I am extremely excited to introduce to you our esteemed panelists. So firstly, from leading international law firm, Walkers, he is a partner in the private client and trust department, as well as finance and corporate departments, Mr. Philip Paschalides. Also joining us from the Price team at RBC Dominion Securities Global Limited, Vice President and Portfolio Manager, Mr. Stephen Price. And finally, representing IRG and our sister company, IRC, which is International Relocation Consultants, our President and CEO, Mr. Jeremy Hurst. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining me here today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on board. So before we jump forward and discuss today's very interesting topic, I thought it would be worth our while to understand the background, a little bit of history to the Cayman Islands development as a global financial center, and the parts of our team that are here today with their representative companies in this development. So Philip, if I may start with you to kick off this morning's session, if you don't mind. As we know, Walkers was founded in 1962, and the now global firm is considered to be at the very heart of the island's legal and financial ecosystem. Perhaps you could give and provide some context as to the technical and legal structures that have made Cayman such an attractive place to do business. Thank you, Philip.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. And good morning to everyone who's dialed in. So in preparing for the webinar this morning or this afternoon, I came across a reproduction of an article from a 1950s magazine. And the article was headed "The Islands That Time Forgot." And it was an article about the three Cayman Islands, lots of sepia photos of a sleepy sort of Caribbean spot. That was in the 1950s. The 1960s really changed all that. And that was the result of a few visionaries, among whom Mr. Walker, who was the founder of my firm. And they collectively made some modifications to the common law and the English companies law, which was in force in the Commonwealth at that time. And that, together with the tax neutral status of the islands, essentially facilitated the development of banking and investment transactions. From then, there was fairly continuous development of specialist legislation, which basically enabled the development of the banking sector, and more recently the investment fund sector, and insurance and reinsurance structures, and a fairly sizable structured finance capability as well. So as matters presently stand, I would just give you a snapshot of what Cayman is like right now and the role that it plays. A significant proportion of the commercial airplanes that are up in the skies generally, they're not at the moment, but they generally are financed through Cayman Islands structures. Pensions from across the globe are invested on a cross-border basis through Cayman investment funds. Global risks of all kinds, whether it's property, casualty, extreme weather events, et cetera, are reinsured through Cayman captive insurance companies or reinsurers. And if you look at the housing or the corporate loan market, a lot of that is effectively funded through Cayman structured finance vehicles. So Cayman, as it is now, represents a very sophisticated and very, very connected, smaller international financial center. It's intimately involved in institutional financial activity globally and is fully engaged in international regulatory initiatives and tax transparency initiatives as well. If I look at my own firm, just to round off, we were founded in 1962 above a shop which is now the Victoria's Secret shop in Bridgetown. We now have 10 offices globally, practicing Cayman Islands law across the globe. So 24/7 Cayman products are being used and being developed through the financial markets.
Fantastic. Thank you, Philip. Stephen, turning to you now, if you don't mind. I recall from preparation ahead of this particular webinar that one of your maternal ancestors was one of the last custos here in the Cayman Islands. However, also your father's side of the family relocated to Cayman when the legal framework that Philip has just spoken about was first introduced. Could you tell us about some of those compelling factors behind the migration to the market and the factors that drove the emergence of Cayman as a global financial center?
Thanks, James. Factor number one, Caymanians are a welcoming people to those from other places. It's our nature, and I think this is one of the primary building blocks of our success as a country and as a financial center. Our Cayman kind culture welcomes those from elsewhere, from all over the world, and in different industries, not only in financial services. So there are several compelling factors that got educated, energized financiers, lawyers, and accountants to move to Cayman in the mid-60s and the decades that followed. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Cayman became a melting pot of different cultures who moved here from all over, who worked well together, and it's still happening today, James. Professionals come to Cayman, they're away from their families back home, and Cayman kind ensures everyone is taken care of. This truly is what makes Cayman so easy to call home within a few years. These are the cultural roots that have contributed to our successful global financial services framework, allowing it to thrive and to grow. A good example is the migration of my dad. A mathematician, he moved to Cayman in 1967 from England via Canada, then the Bahamas, settling here, marrying a Caymanian. He first moved to Canada, quickly realized the weather was the same, so didn't stay too long, then moved to the Bahamas, realized the Bahamas was on the verge of independence, which actually happened in 1969. So like a lot of well-educated, hardworking folks at that time, he moved to Cayman from the Bahamas. He started a trust company and he never left. Like RBC, the bank that I work for, my family has been in Cayman quite a long time. My two kids are 10th generation Caymanian. And as you mentioned, James, my great-great-grandfather was the last Caymanian custos, which was the governor equivalent of that day. So what other factors played a role? A warm welcome, I've mentioned. Stability, a strong relative infrastructure, and the right legislation. These were all crucial elements to Cayman's emergence as a financial global center. Cooperation between the private and public sectors from an early stage in our financial industry was also really, really key. Importantly, a global financial center not only needs good people, which we had, it needs reputable and committed banks, all for credibility. And without committed global banks, with strong balance sheets, lending into the growth, pushing money supply to flow, I personally don't think Cayman's growth would have happened.
Well, thank you, Stephen. Phenomenal historical connection, and I totally agree that that strong committed banks are essential today. On that note, when did RBC open its doors here in the Cayman Islands?
Cheers. We opened in Cayman in 1964. Currently, RBC is the 11th largest bank in the world by way of market cap, and we have offices around the globe and have a long-standing commitment and tradition of excellence in the Caribbean. As a firm, we celebrated our 150th year last year, which was also our best year in our 130 years in the Caribbean, 56 of those right here in Cayman. For near 20 years, I've been with RBC doing what I do today, which is lead an investment team of 11, known as the Price Team of RBC Dominion Securities. Our investment business opened its doors here in 1972. For context, I was born in 1974, so a long, long time ago. Within RBC, we continue to be a cross-border center of excellence with clients living in over 40 different countries. Our clients' portfolios are subject to Cayman Islands law, yet are held on the books and records of RBC Dominion Securities, which is a really well-oiled machine. As Canada's leading full-service wealth management platform with over 400,000 clients and 300 billion in assets. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. Jeremy, turning to you. Through both IRG and IRC, you've been working in the Cayman Islands, relocating investors, corporations for almost 30 years. What do you think and what do you see as the key trends and developments that you've noticed during your time here?
Thanks, James. Well, I arrived in Cayman in 1988, a little after Stephen's dad, but we were very much a back office at that time. And although everyone was, including the locals, were living very well, the island was nowhere near what we could consider as luxury status at that point. I've always worked in the global luxury property markets, so recall when I affiliated with a leading international luxury brand being asked to research the luxury inventory in Cayman, and managed to count a massive total of 15 homes that were then valued over $1 million, and a similar number of units on 7 Mile Beach, which may have been over $1.5 million. I also recall visiting Palm Beach in 1990 with the same international group, and realizing that not only was there a gap in inventory numbers, but also the quality of products at that time. And in fact, quite honestly, then we were way behind the regional key players, such as the Bahamas, Barbados, and parts of Bermuda. How things have changed in 30 years. We are now truly global players in the luxury market and surpass most, if not all, of the locations in the Caribbean as a luxury lifestyle destination, especially when it comes to being a place where people want to live for the long term and make their home. It's now rare to find any home under $1 million on the waterfront of any type. And the luxury market of $2 to $3 million is perhaps the strongest locally at the moment, with homes and condos now regularly selling north of $10 million, and a couple of notable penthouse sales recently in the $25 million price point on 7 Mile Beach. Of course, this surge has resulted from the demand, not only from local professionals who work here, but the increasing number of investors who choose, as I said, to make Cayman their long-term home, especially post-COVID. The other major difference is the length of time the investors live here. 30 years ago, the primary group we saw coming down regularly were the snowbirds, as we called them. Mainly North Americans flying south for the Caribbean for a few weeks of warm weather, or maybe a couple of months of winter, and then occasionally throughout the year. Nowadays, we're much more likely to see those same people, and people from all over the world, staying 3 to 6 months at a time as a secondary residence, and oftentimes making Cayman their primary residence, if not their preferred second home. Of course, schools, great schools, healthcare, wonderful restaurants, and a host of other amenities have all been part of that attraction. But as Stephen says, it goes really back to the fundamentals of Cayman being a safe, stable, civilized jurisdiction that works. And that's not something that everyone can boast in these tumultuous times. So next year is IRG's 25th anniversary. We intend to celebrate that well. You're all invited. And we've seen a lot of changes, as I've just laid out, in Cayman during that period, all of them good ones.
Thank you, Jeremy, and you raise a very interesting point. I'm going to pivot back to Philip now. Philip, is this a trend that you've noticed within your client base in terms of creating, physical presence here in Cayman? And if so, how has it affected your own business model?
Thank you, James. I'll select a couple of words that Jeremy used. Back office. I think when I came to practice initially in Cayman 18 years ago, we were really a back office jurisdiction. The real activity was happening somewhere else. But I think that over the time that I've been practicing here, I think it would be fair to say that that's the type of work has become less typically offshore work. And I think the reason for that is that gradually assets and value has become Caymanized, by which I mean it's sort of been wrapped up in Cayman structures. And so the work has become more Cayman focused, more like what one would do in London or New York. I think the consequence of that has been that there's been a growing appreciation that Cayman's professional base and its legal product is able to support origination business activity in Cayman. And we see this in a number of different sectors. At the moment, the reinsurance sector is very busy. We also see it in the family office sector with the establishment of family offices, which are transacting out of the Cayman Islands. But we also see asset managers coming to Cayman, employing people, actually having a physical presence and trusting Cayman as a base from which to do their professional commercial activities. Very strangely, there are all sorts of diverse businesses that are now coming to Cayman and looking at Cayman as a good place to HQ or to originate their commercial activities. And I think, as Jeremy said, COVID has really accelerated that. So moving on to the second element of your question, how has Walkers responded to that? Well, about 4 years ago, we went through a fairly comprehensive process of overhauling and modernizing our private client team. So we set up a specialist multidisciplinary team, which is called the Private Capital and Trusts team. And that, amongst other things, assists with high-value relocations or the establishment of businesses locally. So we will, on those sorts of mandates, handle immigration, customs type questions, employment, the various licensing steps that need to be taken. We provide regulatory advice, also the corporate formation and structuring, and there'll often be a trusts or wills and estates angle to that type of mandate as well. So essentially, we will handle everything to ensure that the client is fully compliant with all domestic laws, and that the structure that's employed is the best possible structure in the circumstances. So as a firm, we're able to do that because we're one of the largest firms. We have a deep bench of associates, and we're able to specialize. And the Private Capital and Trust team brings together those various different specialisms in order to provide a very, very effective service. And we're presently the only firm that does this, and we're extremely busy.
Fantastic, sounds exciting. And well, thank you for the characterization of Cayman rapidly becoming kind of an onshore jurisdiction. It's a perfect assessment of the pattern that I think we're seeing in IRG as well for some time now. Stephen, we're going to turn to you. Would it be safe to say that you're noticing a similar shift in your client base? And do you believe that there's a concurrent shift in the global market's perception of Cayman?
Without a doubt, James. Look, Cayman has been recognized as a global leader in the investment and finance sector for years. We focused on internationally connected clients who have a need for an investment account on the North American time zone that offers a critical, live-to-market, high-performing team. Now, though, we are far more focused on the high-net-worth client or family office with some form of physical presence in Cayman. And frankly, the islands industry as a whole has caught up. In much the way that Singapore acts in Asia, the Cayman Islands is now a very sophisticated place to be, offering world-class wealth management services from right here by some of the strongest banks in the world. And while you're here, you can get a world-class meal near any cuisine, first-class healthcare, great schools for the kids, all in safety, not locked behind the security guards of a gated community. And this shift is happening now, James. In my time at RBC, I've not seen anything like the current interest in our country's value proposition as a place to spend time and do business. The reality is that for those who live and work here for some portion of their life, We are a very sophisticated place, and it's not just perception. Global firms are investing capital and moving people as a result of this shift. RBC is a great example. In January of this year, we opened a new 9,000 square foot office to better service our investment and private banking clients, which has also included the installation of the largest RBC sign and logo on the planet. For any locals on the call here at Cayman Bay, if you've driven past it at night, it's a running joke that our sign must be visible from the moon. Other signs of commitment, RBC Insurance has recently opened an office in Cayman, soon to be the largest reinsurance company in Cayman. We are really proud of our Dominion Securities and private banking operations here, and we remain committed to Cayman's future. And frankly, we're not the exception. Many other world-class companies are committed to being a part of the community for many years to come. Thanks.
Fantastic, that's excellent, Stephen. So now I think we're seeing a common pattern for sure. Philip, I'm gonna circle back to you, if you don't mind. During our earlier webinars, we've talked at length about the impact of the Cayman Islands government and how it's had a continued development and appeal to these islands. So an important factor for any relocating high net worth individual is understanding how that government in that country works and how it's funded and so on. Could you expand on the core sources of government revenues and their operational approach here in the Cayman Islands?
Sure, thank you, James. Just before I do that, maybe a little bit of background about how Cayman traditionally has developed. And the answer to that is really through private investment. So if you look at, for example, our telephone system, that's the result of government granting a franchise to cable and wireless in the 60s or 70s, as a result of which they had freedom to develop the telephone infrastructure. Same is also true of our utilities system, our electricity system. CUC was developed, was given a franchise. So it's really private investment that drives infrastructure, which is, I suppose, very different from other developed states, where it's traditionally government that's responsible for infrastructure. It's not to say that there isn't government input into that. There obviously is, but that's traditionally how things have evolved in Cayman. So the thing about Cayman, of course, as everybody knows, is that it's tax neutral. The sort of the story that the tourists get is that there was a shipwreck, the Wreck of the 10 Sails in 1794, as a result of which and the sterling efforts of the Caymanian people to rescue the king's son, we were granted tax-free status. That's I'm not sure about the historical veracity of that, but that's the story. The reality is that it's a small island. It's pretty well managed. The need for tax revenue is going to be much lesser than in a bigger, more complex environment. Our government is fiscally prudent, pretty conservatively managed. We currently enjoy a Moody's AA3 rating, which is the fourth highest credit rating for sovereigns, and we're sort of within the 20th percentile on the World Governance Index. So it's a super stable and efficient government, and government programs of all kinds are essentially funded through indirect taxes. So there are various fees for businesses, work permit fees, import duties, tourist taxes, and so on and so forth. Small really is beautiful. It's much easier to manage a population of 70,000 than 70 million. One major source of revenue on the islands of this kind is stamp duty. So obviously, because of the financial sector and the legal sector, there's a lot of documentation generated, and the stamp duty applies to documents which are executed here or brought into the island. Probably the most significant of those is land transfers. So on an acquisition of property, there will be a stamp duty charge on the documentation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Philip. And yeah, what a fantastic explanation of how the Cayman government works. for our audience this morning, or anybody who's tuning in this afternoon. I'm sure they were very enlightened. Jeremy, I'm going to pivot back to you, if you don't mind. As we heard, Philip talked a lot about, well, to mention stamp duty as a key source of revenue for the Cayman Islands. Could you tell us more about the typical cost of acquisition here in Cayman? And also, what does the real estate market in Cayman have to offer high net worth, the high net worth community? Thank you.
James, thanks. Well, apologies for that. And first of all, the cost of the acquisition process itself is very favorable compared to other high quality jurisdictions, in that the 7.5% stamp duty that Philip mentioned is usually the only substantive cost involved, apart from, of course, the purchase price of the property itself. And more importantly, there are no ongoing property taxes or rates. This obviously means you can buy and hold raw land at absolutely no cost if you wish to, and the same applies to develop property, apart from your normal costs of insurance and maintenance. Just as importantly, there are no restrictions on foreign ownership. In fact, quite the opposite. The Cayman Islands government encourages investors to buy property here to achieve residency by investment, and an investment of 1.2 million in property makes the buyer and their dependents eligible for a 25-year residency certificate, and 1 of 2.4 million gives them eligibility to acquire full permanent residency, which in turn can lead to naturalization, a UK passport, and Cayman citizenship indeed. Even if you don't want to go that route, anyone owning a property here can stay for up to 6 months at a time with a permission letter, and visit for shorter periods as many times as you like each year, which is very flexible compared to many other jurisdictions in the region and globally. Permanent residents and property owners are experiencing the benefit of owning Cayman as we open up our borders post-COVID, as these are the very first group that have been allowed back in. From a property cost and value perspective, Cayman's market has steadily risen over the past 30 years and offers a strong and stable track record of long-term appreciation. We don't tend to see the boom and bust cycles that other markets experience. And I think that relates, as mentioned, to our strong economic fundamentals and the fact that the lifestyle product we offer has improved consistently over time, especially over the last 10 years. We now offer luxury beachfront condos, waterfront estates, dream homes to match any market in the world, and a lot different from when I first came on the island, as mentioned. Security of ownership is also very important. Our system is supported by a very efficient online land registry, and title is guaranteed by the Cayman Islands government. So all in all, a very effective and efficient process, and one in which a buyer can find a property, go to contract and close within as little as 30 days. In fact, right now we're in the process of selling a luxury beachfront villa to a young professional high net worth family who plan to relocate here from North America. They viewed the home virtually 2 weeks ago, James, you'll know because you were involved in it, using FaceTime. Their offer was accepted last week, and they'll close by the end of October and arrive to take up residency in early November. The surprising thing is that this is not an isolated case. So to me, this story represents the pull-in power of Cayman, especially post-COVID, as well as the lifestyle we offer, and of course, the fact we have a strong, attractive luxury property market.
Thank you, Jeremy. So based on what we've kind of all said so far, I believe it's fair to say that Cayman, through a combination of compelling global socioeconomic political forces, alongside a sophisticated and excuse me, constantly evolving local product, it's increasingly becoming a jurisdiction to both live and do business. That being said, how have your firms adapted to simply simplify the relocation process and provide your clients with a very smooth transition? Philip, maybe I'll start with you to address that question.
Thanks, James. Happy to. So as I described earlier, we set up a multidisciplinary specialist team 4 or so years ago. I think the point is that these types of mandates, there are quite a few moving parts. So you need people who can attend to each of those moving parts with the right expertise. We treat a relocation and residency mandate essentially like a cross-border mergers and acquisitions transaction. We'll take direct responsibility and for the bits that we can do. We'll coordinate the bits that we can't do, but essentially we will have overall oversight and responsibility for the whole thing. We work as a firm on multi-billion-dollar transactions as a routine matter. Many of those are very time sensitive. They may be opportunistic, driven by opportunities in the market that are available for a very short time. So we are very, very used to dealing with complex things on very tight timeframes. And as a practice, we sort of have a rule, and that rule is we just never want to be the member of the working group that is responsible for a piece of paper that is outstanding at the time that it's needed in order to close the transaction. So we're a leading international firm. We have transferred all the skills and the experience that we have from the institutional world into the private world. We know how to make things happen, and we're very effective at doing that.
Thank you, Philip. That's great. Stephen, the same question to you.
Thanks, James. I think we make things smooth because we talk well together. Law firms, realtors, banks, portfolio managers, and the government are working together better than ever to make relocating your family to Cayman straightforward. A smooth transition is really important. Many clients thinking of moving here want to establish a Cayman connection before they actually get here. Our team can open cash management and investment accounts before they arrive. One of the first things a high net worth family wants to know, can I find a bank that I trust for my private banking? And are there sound investment advisors who can hold and advise on my investments and portfolios? i.e., if I'm gonna move and live somewhere, I want some of my wealth managed there. My team does all that. We can provide cash management accounts before the high net worth family actually moves here, making the physical move later much, much easier. The team that I lead is 11 persons in total, 4 CFA charter holders from 5 different countries. We speak 7 different languages, all with a focus on clients in North America, including the US and Canada, the Anglo-Caribbean, including Cayman, of course, the United Kingdom, Western Europe, and spots of Asia. We advise and provide execution and custody services on over 2.5 billion in client assets. And the client benefit is pretty simple. We're a North American platform located outside of the US that resonates with US, Canadian, and European clients living all around the world, with pre-market capabilities, including US options markets. Our full multi-currency platform is superb for servicing the international multi-home client who crosses borders. We're flexible, offering execution-only advisory and discretionary accounts, with discretionary accounts starting at 1 million, equivalent in US, sterling, euro, and Canadian. Another benefit, when the family office sets up here, we can maintain personal accounts for all of the employees, the CFO if you like, corporate accounts, foundation, and trust accounts all in one place. We efficiently trade in over 20 deliverable currencies and have access to most global stock exchanges. We offer segregated and safe custody with one of the safest banks in the world, a AA-rated bank, one of the few. We do not commingle your funds with other clients. We have time zone alignment. For US and Canadian clients, we're on your time zone. For UK-based clients, of which we have many, you can talk to your investment advisor in your evening after the kids have gone to bed. We can review your portfolio and trade the US market at 8 p.m. London time. For some, that's a real advantage. We have longevity and quality service. Many on my team are Caymanian or permanent residents. We're here to stay. The last benefit, and I'll talk to an example later, but we offer support for credit. Our portfolios can be used as collateral to support a line of credit in many different currencies.
Thank you, Stephen. And finally, same question to you, Jeremy.
So James, IRG was actually set up originally as a company providing relocation services to high net worth investors and corporations who are looking to relocate to Cayman. And in fact, we were known as International Relocation Group, not International Realty Group at that time, and basically provided high-value white glove relocation services tailored to meet the needs of a variety of clients. So even when we changed our name to International Realty Group in 1998, we retained these core relocation values in all aspects of the business. And in fact, they've remained part of our DNA ever since, reflected by the add-on services we offer to our real estate clients even today. Having that white glove service-based culture and expertise in relocation has really added to the value we brought to our clients, I believe, over the years, and has actually brought a significant recognition globally. In 2018, we were are named as leading real estate companies of the world's top global luxury brokerage. And in fact, this year we received their Global Leadership Award as well. So I think that's very much the qualities that we have endemically that have led to this recognition. In response to the changes we've seen in the market over the past years, and more recently in the increased demand from relocating investors post-COVID, we've now taken the decision, as you know, to relaunch our relocation platform. This time as a standalone division of IRG's group of companies to service the needs of Cayman's new waves of relocating high net worth investors and corporations. The company will be branded International Relocation Consultants, or IRC, and again, we'll provide tailored white glove concierge level service, just as we did originally and have over the years. We're excited about this development and believe it's the right time for us to do this as we move towards a new level of luxury and sophistication within the lifestyle product that Cayman is able to offer the global marketplace. We'll do this with partners such as Walkers and RBC, of course, adopting a team approach to collectively offer the highest levels of service and the smoothest possible relocation experiences to our collective clients. We'll provide comprehensive relocation coordination plans to meet our clients' needs, dealing with all aspects of their relocation, including the often challenging practical and logistical ones, such as helping finding places at schools, helping meet challenging healthcare needs, coordinating the physical relocation process itself, as well as, of course, helping our clients find their perfect home or office. So, an unashamed plug, look out for more information on this service that we're soft launching shortly, and we will be fully operational from January 1, 2021. More to follow.
Thank you, Jeremy. And so we're almost coming to the end of this morning's session. So a final question that I'll pose to all of you. And again, it's a question, for everybody. How do you see Cayman's high net worth community changing or adapting over, say, the next 2 years? Stephen, why don't I start with you this time?
Once Cayman's airport fully opens, over the next few years, I think we see more of what was happening before COVID, which is more high quality, high net worth families and family offices picking up and moving here. I'm big on real life examples of what I've seen, so I'll share a few. Last year, a US resident sold a hotel he owned. We had accounts open, portfolios funded, a property purchased here in Cayman, and permanent residency all completed in less than 2 months. Very efficient. A second example, a UK couple. He's retiring from a large US-based tech firm later this year, and his wife is stranded in Ireland due to COVID, and they want to reunite in a country they know to be safe, sophisticated, and warm. They've chosen Cayman. In 3 weeks, they'll be one of the first flying in by private plane to close on the property and to base themselves here going forward. We opened an account for them. They electronically transferred in sterling 5 million in stocks and bonds from a UK-based bank that we now manage. And we also set up a line of credit in USD against that portfolio. The couple's borrowing $3 million using that portfolio as collateral to fund the real estate purchase here in Cayman, which meets the 2.4 million real estate minimum for their permanent residency application. Very efficient. A third and final example, a Canadian high net worth family with homes in Vancouver and Palm Springs is closing on a 7 Mile Beach condo in 2 weeks, an unseen property. As kind of Jeremy alluded to, we're seeing more of that, by the way. Several people I know and have met online buying 4 million plus homes and condos without even seeing them. In this case, the client wants a base to raise his young kids in a place that has good schools, a place where he can run his web-based service business that transacts around the world, and he'll divide up his time between Canada, the US, and Cayman. In a nutshell, James, I think we see more high-quality families move here for sure over the next 2 years, all looking for quality service with sound investment solutions reflective of an agreed return objective, executed in a disciplined fashion over time, all offered at a fair price.
Thank you, Stephen. Philip, same question to you.
Thank you, James. I'll sort of pick up on Stephen's examples. So a couple of examples of retirees coming to Cayman following some sort of liquidity event. But the one that sort of struck me, and that's a fairly traditional experience for Cayman, the one that struck me was the business owner. I expect to see a lot more business owners relocating to Cayman. I think COVID has shown us that we don't need to be in a particular place necessarily to be able to function effectively from a business perspective. And if that's the case, you know, why not be somewhere nice? And Cayman is extremely pleasant, as you've all been hearing. I think we're also going to see, therefore, a lot more diversity in the high net worth and ultra high net worth population here. Different people coming from different walks of life and different regions as well. We've had lots of activity from some unexpected regions of late. I think that's going to drive more local investment. And I think critically that's going to provide more infrastructure and diversity of experience for the ultra high net worth sort of lifestyle expectations. I think another thing that I should mention is numbers. I think we expect to see a major increase in numbers. Government actually has a strategic plan for the increase of the island's population from its present level of 70,000 to about 100,000 in the next 10 years. So that's a fairly significant increase. My own personal view is that we will go way beyond that, probably within that time period. And I think a lot of that increase in population will be from the ultra high net worth sector. I think one final observation is that Cayman benefits from regulatory issues and from socio-economic issues in other jurisdictions. In a time of crisis, people look for quality, and we see that in our legal product, and I think we see that in our lifestyle product as well. So just to finish off, I mean, Cayman is, in every sense of the term, a quality offering. So we expect that flight to quality to be something that we benefit from.
That's great. Thank you, Philip. Same question to you, Jeremy.
Thanks, James. It's tempting to say I just agree with everything Stephen and Philip have just said, but I'd also like to reinforce a couple of what I think are important points, especially in relation to Cayman's fundamentals, which I think are becoming increasingly rare in this uncertain world that we live in. Firstly, Cayman remains economically strong at a time when economies regionally and globally are seriously hurting. We're politically stable at a time when even the strongest countries in the world are divided. And we're socially stable, yet racially diverse. We have 138 nationalities living and working here, at last count in relative harmony. This, again, is not something that was superimposed. It's part of Cayman's DNA. More importantly, Cayman's a welcoming place to both high net worth investors and corporations, and a place where they can feel safe, a place where they and their staff and their families can relax and be themselves. So if these fundamentals were important pre-COVID, then they're even more valuable in a post-COVID world, where the high net worth are looking for a safe, stable bolt hole for themselves and their families and their businesses and their money. Now that possibility of a global pandemic is on our radar. The high net worth community will look at who's fared well and who hasn't. And in this sense, the prospects for Cayman as a preferred jurisdiction for them to live, work and play is, I believe, very bright. And I feel will continue to be so for the foreseeable future. And we'll see those numbers that Philip and Stephen have been talking about increasing as time goes on. We have a tremendous amount to offer, and we're looking forward to busy times helping investors relocate to and enjoy our beautiful, safe islands.
Thank you, Jeremy. So as we come to our final part, I want to thank you all, our esteemed panelists. Thank you for your time and efforts. I think it was very worthwhile. Even I learned a little bit about how everything happens in Cayman this morning. So appreciate all of your efforts. Also, of course, thanks to everybody that dialed in this morning. A lot of our friends, colleagues in the UK time zone also. So we hope that you found it very, very beneficial, not only educational, but obviously enjoyable as well. For those of you that are already here in Cayman, we hope that you continue to enjoy our beautiful islands and pretty much a COVID-free, thankfully, island. And for anybody that's really interested in learning more about Cayman and the various professional services offered by all of our panelists, we're more than happy to connect you directly. Again, you can send us an email to info@irg.ky. A reminder, this webinar is recorded, so everybody that's registered will automatically receive a copy in the coming days. And we're always happy to answer any questions directly. So for now, we wish you to stay safe, stay healthy, and we hope to see you on our next Oracle webinar series, which is coming soon. From all of us in the beautiful Cayman Islands, take care and have a great day. Thank you.